Inside Kids Marketing Blitz, how Universal courted 400 brands and spent big to guarantee the musical was everywhere. So if you care to find Wicked, look, just about anywhere. You'd have to be flattened by a farmhouse to miss the promotional onslaught for Wicked. Part 1. From Starbucks Drinks. Elphaba Cold Brew, topped with grey matcha foam. Anyone. To Emerald City Lego sets, Shiz University sweaters at Target, and OPI's Fiyero's My Money nail polish. It's a shade of cobalt blue. Universal has partnered with more than 400 corporate brands to create scores of products and tie-ins to launch the big screen musical Extravaganza. And the studio didn't stop with themed coffee beverages and winter wear. Manhattan's Empire State Building was illuminated in pink and green, the signature colors of the film's Witchy Protagonists. While earlier this year, stars Cynthia, Erivo and Ariana Grande stopped by the Summer Olympic Games in Paris in Elphaba and Glinda Cosplay. This publicity storm wasn't just a runaway tornado. It's all been meticulously designed by Universal Chief Marketing Officer Michael Moses, who told movie theater owners that his mission with Wicked was being just short of obnoxious. We live in an environment where monoculture doesn't happen in the way it used to, he told Variety. So you have to be everywhere. An onslaught of all things Oz, however, doesn't come cheap. Those extensive global marketing efforts are estimated to cost $150 million, according to rival studio executives. And that doesn't include the combined $300 million production budget for Wicked, Part 1 and Part 2, which arrives in 1 year. It's already paying off. Wicked, a Wizard of Oz origin story about everything that happens before Dorothy saunters down the yellow brick road, opened to $112 million at the North American box office and $162 million globally. Those ticket sales rank as the third best domestic debut of the year and the biggest opening in history for a Broadway-to-film adaptation. Rave reviews, positive word of mouth, and the musical's infectiously catchy songs are expected to drive repeat business throughout the holiday season. In the wake of its decades-in-the-making debut, Moses divulged the aggressive and expensive strategy to turn Wicked into the biggest Broadway adaptation of all time, and his plans to recapture the magic all over again for Part 2 in November 2025. How did you decide where and when to start the marketing campaign? We were always very clear that this movie centers on and would be powered by females, but we also wanted to declare that we intended Wicked to be a cultural event. And there is no bigger media event than the Super Bowl. We wanted to begin as big and declarative as possible and continue at that level. The first teaser includes the famous Defying Gravity battle cry. Was there debate about holding it back? There wasn't a debate. When you're working on materials, you always have those kinds of conversations. But if there's a single sound associated with Wicked, it's certainly that end to Defying Gravity. If we were going to invest in the 60-second spot on the Super Bowl, you have to put as many goodies in there that were available at the time. We know what a triumph that battle cry is, and ending that spot with it felt assured and inescapably the right call. Studios have been criticized recently for hiding that movies are musicals. How did you approach that in the marketing materials? When you're working on something like, let's say, Wonka, or Joker, or other films that didn't begin their lives as musicals, I understand the impulse to not, as we say, put on your jazz hands too soon. It's a polarizing genre. If our job as marketers is to invite as many people as possible, sometimes that feels like a third rail not to touch. But in this case, there's no pretending that this was a non-singing version of Wicked. We started without characters breaking into song. We used the songs, but we didn't show anybody singing. As the campaign progressed, we slowly began to introduce those elements. Did you take any inspiration from Barbie, Another movie with a female-centric campaign. That's the inspiration. Last year's biggest movie also was centered on and fueled by women. I get frustrated sometimes that our industry has to relearn that lesson time and again. There are enough women in the world. If you make something that is truly an event for them, they will show up. Barbie proved that in giant magnitude last year. We found hope in that we could be a version of that same phenomenon. So, the only question anyone wants to know, how big was the marketing budget?